Hello, folks, wherever you are. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is where you are. Welcome. Welcome to another Sunday football recap with us, the 2022 SEC College Football Weekly with Dadman recap on a Sunday night. And boy, it has been amazing this year. We are at the end of 12 weeks of 13 weeks in the regular season. Who would have thought it has been a journey? It has been a quick, very rapid journey through football, the college football season this year. You know, our channels changed a bit. The way we do things have changed a little bit. This season has been very unpredictable at times. So, what else do you expect? It's another great season that is almost in the books. We have one more week of the regular season coming up, followed by the conference championships and then bowl season. Everybody's favorite time of year where you get 30-something games that really don't mean squat, and there's only 3 that do. But hey, we all love our football. It's one more chance to see your teams in action. And look forward in the future. We've got some plans for conference championship specials, some bowl game specials, and there'll be predictions and some reviews. Of course, we probably won't review all the bowl games that are out there because I don't know if we need the Car Care Bowl or the Poulon Weed Eater Bowl or there's some very strange bowl game names out there. Years ago, the Gasparilla Bowl. There's all kinds of cool names out there. Armed Forces Bowl. I'd like to have one year the Toilet Bowl. Take the 2 worst teams and make them play each other. That would be an interesting game to see. Battle for the worst. But how it goes. But anyway, I appreciate all of y'all that are here, that are live with us now, that are watching. Feel free to leave comments or ask questions. We're here to talk football. If you have questions about a score or a game or why a rule is some way or just in anything, throw it out in the chat and we'll do our best to deal with it. If you have comments about certain games, feel free, please leave them and we'll talk about it and just have a good old time together. We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up, especially in this week. We'll tease one thing later towards the end of the show that we've got. But folks, I love college football. Hopefully you've learned a lot being with us this year. And hopefully, you'll enjoy it. The rest of what we have this year, and maybe next year we'll do even more things, make it bigger and better. And, it's always good to have people involved too, and people to help you and get more resources and people to pull and get together with a common interest to do things and make it better. With that lead in, I am going to now introduce y'all to somebody special that's been in our chats recently. I found on Twitter out of nowhere during I think it was the Tennessee-Alabama game, making comments about the Vols and not going to win the game and stuff, and back and forth, Tennessee-Alabama. And then the last few weeks, a lot of talk with this person that really 20 years ago, you'd think I'm crazy to even have a Vol fan on it, on anything I'm involved with, being a Gator. But I will tell you, this person has in a short time been shown a very impressive knowledge of SEC football, specifically knowledge of football, history of the SEC, and so much more. But even beyond that, the passion for talking football, which is a wonderful thing. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the one and the only Geeky. Hi, Geeky.
Hey, Dadman. Hey, everybody. What's going on?
Well, welcome tonight.
Well, thank you. I am so excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, you've not done this before, have you?
No, I have not. This is my first live stream ever.
Wow. Well, we'll have fun together. We'll make it a good time.
Oh yeah.
We'll take things easy and have fun with it. We won't. Well, of course, with the Gators doing their little stunt this week, I got no room to talk. So
right. And I see Mrs. Dadman. Hey.
Yes, we got Mrs. out there as
And we
always
got the
here.
Wade too.
Yeah, Real Wade Nation. Yeah, he's a Vol fan too, but yeah, it's one game, Wade. It's only one game. It's only one game, and we'll see. I'll talk more about that probably coming up next week during next week's special. So stick with us. So yeah, and yes, so this is geeky. Yeah, this is ooh, she's geeky.
That is me.
Absolutely. So what you get since you're new to the show and relatively new in the program, give us a little bit about your background with football in sports. What's your history? What do you like? Have you played sports?
I have played sports. I never played football, even the powder puff football thing that we had at our high school, but I did cheerleading for a brief stint. So of course I was always at the games, and then I did marching band. Woohoo, band geeks! So I was always at the football games, and then just every weekend I would, in my childhood, I would go with my parents either to their friend's house or we would watch the games at home, and that's how I got into football. Other sports came along too, baseball, hockey. Of course, everybody knows I'm a huge hockey fan if they follow my Twitter. But that's really all that I have as far as sports. That's how I got into it.
Well, how did you become a volunteer fan? I mean, you're very passionate. You go a long way back with them, right?
Yes, I do. So, I was born into it. My parents are huge Vols fans. My dad's side of the family were huge Vols fans. So, it went down the generational line, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how that happens. That's kind of like
It
what
is.
happened with me was being here in Florida. My dad was a Gator fan. My uncle was a Gator fan, so it kind of bled into the family. The family line like that. But yeah.
It does. And also, since I'm a big football fan, I also do occasionally watch the pro games. And I was born into the Raider Nation, which I actually have my Raiders hoodie on today.
Well, hey, I'm more of a Cowboy fan, so that happened for because of growing up in the '70s with America's team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it became well, really back in the '70s with only like three channels. You didn't have many options. You pretty much got stuck with the team you were assigned almost every week.
Right.
Mm. Yeah, it's just I the NFL game is so much different, more different to me than the NFL game. Uh, the pageantry, the bands, the cheerleaders.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more because and the thing, one of the differences with NFL is that in college you can't lose two games or three games. You've got to win if you want to go to the playoffs or have a very good bowl game. Every week counts. Every week means something.
Yeah, that drive has to be there to be winners. So, yep, I totally agree with you on that.
Mm. Well, what do you have a special game that you remember being a Vol fan?
As a Vol fan,
Yeah.
I would say it would be the year that we won the national championship in 1998. I actually stayed up all night to watch that game because I'm of the quote unquote elder millennial generation. So I was in high school at the time, and they were playing Florida State, and I stayed up and watched that game. And I remember having to be so super quiet whenever they won because my parents were already asleep.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, that's number one, and then number two would have been the year that Josh Dobbs Hail Married the football into a sea of red, and the football came up with a Tennessee player, and that was pretty amazing.
I remember that game. I love that game. I think the missus hates that game. Because that's the game that my sister's getting remarried on. I left the missus in the wedding reception all by herself while I was listening to the game at the end.
I remember you talking about that. I think it was either Friday night or maybe it
Yeah.
was the week before. I can't I
Yeah.
can't really remember. Time goes so fast nowadays, but I remember that. That's hilarious.
Oh man, it was just the look though I got when I got back in there was priceless. But hey, I don't blame her. Oh, that is awesome. So, I guess at this point, Um, we'll do more talking about backgrounds and history and stuff like that a little bit later or in another episode. But you ready to take a look and review at week 12?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. Well, this is what we call every week the where we stand in week 12 because we'll take a look back at the games this week. We'll look back at our picks. Each week I pick, and we have guests on the show that pick against us. And this week's guest was none other than Mrs. Dadman Walking, who we had on for a second time this year. And it was, yep, exactly. It'll be really a woohoo in just a moment. So, hey, but we'll see where this goes. Bad news travels fast, but hey, it's all good. But looking at this week's game, before we look at the results of the picks, let's look at these games. And if you got comments along the way, feel free to shout it out and we'll talk about it in a little bit. Ole Miss, Arkansas. Ole Miss won this game 42-27. I mean, Arkansas won this game 42-27. I wish Ole Miss won it. But the Pigs came back and had a good week at home this week and really knocked off a team that should have had a lot to play for. Ole Miss with only 2 losses going into the game, but now loses this game on the road. Actually, and the game was not that close for a long time. For most of the game, it was about 28-6, 35-6, those type of things. Yeah, I tried, but I knew y'all would catch me. So trying to give myself a win geeky with that one. So
Mrs. Dadman chirping in the chat.
Yeah, she's on me. I know, that's cool. But this game was really a rout from the beginning. Ole Miss scored 20-something in the 4 quarters to make it look closer than it really was. It was they pulled it within 15 with about a minute left. I mean, there's kind of a surprise how Ole Miss almost walked into the game not even caring, since there really was nothing to play for in terms of conference standings or national position for Ole Miss. So, you got any history or thoughts with Ole Miss or Arkansas?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I know that we've played Arkansas in the past, but I don't have any real like big memories. Like they weren't really memorable games. I can't speak tonight, but not a whole lot with these two. Although I can't wait to get to that second one below that one.
Yeah, I know you do. Well, real quick, the only thing that I've really got, because Arkansas came into the conference back in 1992, and when Spurrier, one of the first years in, they won the West, and the Gators met them in the SEC championship game, and the Gators blew them out. I remember one of the plays specifically, they were more of an option team, and they were driving on the Gator goal line and ran an option at the pitch out, and Ben Hanks for the Gators took the pitch out and ran it all the way back 90-something yards for a touchdown. So, but outside that, it's like you said, you don't have a lot of history with them. I know Tennessee, your history with the Western Division is Alabama in that rivalry. Florida is LSU. So those are the games you tend to have more memories of the Western Division teams.
Oh, yeah, and I remember that year that Tennessee had too many players on the field against LSU, and LSU got us.
Yep. One mistake can cost you.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was the same year that Tennessee went to the bowl game against the Tar Heels, and the same thing happened. I forgot to mention that. That was a game that I actually got to go to. I got to go to a University of Tennessee bowl game, and I still have a picture of the final score. I think it was 20-14 whenever they called everybody back onto the field because Tennessee once again had too many men on the field.
That I tell you, that is something that will get you, especially 12 men on the field or things like that. And when they happen repeatedly, I could only imagine how frustrating it was as a Vol fan, that game against Georgia with all the false start penalties too.
Oh yes,
that
was extremely frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's one thing with the crowd noise that's so loud. The others are like just when you have inattentiveness, with too many men on the field, and especially when it happens play after play. You'd think you'd wake up to that, don't you?
One would think, yeah, but
Yeah.
apparently not.
Well, believe me, I've seen the Gators do that quite a bit over the years. So, you know, um, um, yeah, exactly. So, anyway, um, so shall we hit that next game? Did you?
Yes, let's go ahead and hit that next game.
Number one, Georgia outlasted the Wildcats of Kentucky 16-6 in what was really a very underwhelming offensive game. But hey, Georgia did enough to win. It emerged victorious again. Any win on a road is a good win. I would say Kentucky's defense was very impressive, holding Georgia's offense down to 16 points.
Yeah, they
But
were. I was watching the last half of that game, and I thought there for a second that Kentucky was going to get them because they were driving pretty good, but of course it is Georgia.
yeah, but what happens with a game like that is Kentucky's so far down, then they get a hot play or two, and they had a couple of long passes over the Georgia defense, and it set them up. And you remember they had that one chance where they tried a field goal but missed it.
Yep.
I mean, it was a bad snap, bad hold, and he pulled it left. You in a game like that, especially when you're trying to rally, you can't leave points off the board. Which I would say I was impressed with Georgia taking the field goal in some cases. It seems like sometimes now coaches don't like to kick field goals. They end up like the touchdown, keep going for it and trying to score touchdowns every time.
And I completely agree with that too. However, a team that gets touchdowns is going to win more than not against teams that only kick field
Yeah.
goals.
No, I agree. But listen, I grew up as a Cowboy fan. There are many games the Cowboys won by just kicking field goals. So.
This is very true. This is true.
But yeah, what I hate is when they like a 4th and 4 at about the 30-yard line, and you just then you get nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you need those points, or the new trend is going for 2 so early in the game that you you leave a point on the board, and if you just give yourself time, those extra points may add up. So, all right,
That's very true.
You got anything else with Georgia, Kentucky? This actually turned out to be a better game than I thought it would be.
You know what? It actually did turn out to be a better game. I will say though that just because of past experiences with Georgia, I'm surprised they didn't blow Kentucky out of the water.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that absolutely. So, but Georgia's done that this year. Really, if you look back at them, they've had some. They struggled to beat Missouri on the road. Took a 4 minutes and left in the game before they took the lead. Sanford, they only scored 33 on offense. Kent State, they struggled, won by probably, I think, 11. So they've had some ups and downs this year on certain games, and maybe there's a weakness with that Georgia offense if you can stop them. But hey, you give Georgia credit; they keep winning. They're still undefeated. So
they are still undefeated.
All right. Well, we got a couple paycheck games, as we call them. The East Tennessee State, Mississippi State. That game, let's see, the final score was 56-7. Mississippi State win that one in Starkville. And I have that saying, when people say that they want more cowbell, what I tell them?
What?
Go to Starkville, Mississippi. You'll get all the damn cowbell you want. It's true. They came here for a bowl game one year, and everybody bans artificial noisemakers, but they get an exemption. They get to bring the noisemakers with them, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think that's good for the spirit of college football, but still, it's just kind of funny how that happens. But then again, if you look at it, Mississippi State usually doesn't win all the time.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Well, they won this game actually, I was moving on to the next game, but that's about it. You got any other comments about Mississippi State?
Not about Mississippi State. I will say that East Tennessee State University was almost my alma mater, but I didn't quite get in there, but
Hey, that's close. Well, they play in a conference basketball with some of the schools down here, so I've seen them a few times in basketball. But hey, well, Missouri beats New Mexico State 45-14. Uh, Another paycheck game, and okay, I wonder if Wade left or Wade's still here. But Geeky, this was your game. South Carolina, Tennessee rolls into South Carolina and gets dumped hard, 63-38.
oh, we didn't get dumped. We got curb stomped, is what happened.
Okay.
It just, I don't, I will say this with, with the way that we don't have the best defense in the country, but we should have been able to stop South Carolina. And just last night, the defense wasn't there, and it was kind of heartbreaking to see as a Tennessee Vol fan. I'm going to say it was kind of heartbreaking to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But and then especially at the end, whenever Hendon, I'm not going to call him the other word because I don't want for Mrs. Dadman to have to work too hard.
Yeah.
At the end, whenever
yeah.
At the end, whenever he got hurt, I see Wade in the chat where he said that we're worse than Vandy. Now, I almost wonder if that's past PTSD like we've spoken about before.
Yeah.
But I mean, after seeing what happened to Tennessee last night and then watching what Vandy did to your Gators, I'm kind of on Wade's side here. I'm kind of worried about next week, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, and with Hendon injured, that could be. I mean, I don't know. I have not seen any reports there. You may have, but it looked like a pretty decent leg injury. But if he's out, then you've got Joe Milton as a backup quarterback who has a lot of talent, can throw the ball, but has always been shaky. He's transferred from Michigan. He lost the job last year. Has not necessarily been the most accurate of passers. So, and a team like Vanderbilt is that. I think that game is in Nashville, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So that makes it. But then again, Vanderbilt's the one team in the league that always has more opposing fans in it than
exactly. And
so,
we are going to have to deal with Milton next week because Hendon tore his ACL. So,
jeez,
yeah,
that's what we. Yeah, you just hope he can heal, and with the draft coming up, that's what's really stinky with an injury like that this late in the season for the player.
Exactly.
But you know what? They've shown that they will look past it. I mean, you look at I can't say Tua. I'll just say Tua from Alabama when he had that really gross hip injury a couple years ago. Didn't affect his draft stock. He still was drafted in the first round overall. So but I see that we got 5 people watching in the chat. Hey, thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah, exactly. This is my guess is she's geeky tonight, and it's her first live stream. So
hello.
We're talking football. It was like I said, it was just so amazing that day. Just seeing, I just randomly saw somebody out there posting about a football game. I'm like, is that person talking Tennessee? And I'm like, holy crap, yeah. And it was like, boom, hey, somebody on Twitter to talk football. That's rare.
Well, and it was the day that Ords did his Fortnite streaming. You had popped into his chat just to say hi, and you said that you were watching the Tennessee Florida game, and I was like, hold on. I'm like, wait a minute. I've got somebody who's SEC, like I can see them in a chat, like, what?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, maybe I've got another Vol fan. And then you had mentioned that you were rooting for Florida. And I was like, okay, well, I can't really judge them on taste. I mean, come on. But yeah, then with the Alabama game, I was sitting there tweeting because I was watching the game a nervous wreck because I mean, how can you not be whenever Tennessee is actually doing good for a change?
Mhm.
And you're sitting there playing who I mean, I know Georgia's the powerhouse, whatever, but for me, Alabama has always been that top tier king of NCAA football in general.
Mhm.
So I'm sitting there a nervous wreck, like, oh my goodness, what's going on in Tennessee right now? They're like up like 21-7. Like, what is going on here? But then, like, once we got to talking about college football, I was like, yes, I have one of my people.
Yeah, it's just it's so much fun being able to talk college football with somebody. It's rare. It's really wow, and it's and it's like I said, yeah. Don't judge on taste. You start playing Rocky Top some too many times, I'll probably like try to hit the mute button. But it's all good. It's all good for
Goal
fun.
goal for tonight, post many, many videos of Rocky Top.
There you go. All right. Especially if I'm on a stream somewhere, tag me and hey, but hey, but yeah, with this game, I was shocked at the lack of Tennessee's defense. South Carolina has come off from several weeks of really, really weak offense and a whole season of an underperforming quarterback and offense.
Mhm.
Florida actually shut them out. The only touchdown South Carolina got the week before was a fake punt throw for a touchdown. I, and Tennessee couldn't stop them. Maybe forced one punt the whole game, maybe two.
Yeah.
That just that's unheard of. That's just I feel for the Vol fans because you knew it was going to be an outside shot to make the playoffs anyway. But this game was very unexpected. If anybody had told you that South Carolina would walk away from this game, score 63 points, yeah, you'd look at them like they're crazy. This
Absolutely.
this was just not expected. You just wonder though what caused Tennessee to not show up on defense because they've had a respectable defense, not the best at
They
times. It's been vulnerabilized, but I mean not 63 to South Carolina bad.
No, I if you would have asked me, I probably would have been like, just because of past experience with Tennessee football, and I'm sure that Wade can agree with me on this if he's still there. You know, we tend to look on the bad side of Tennessee. Now,
Mhm.
if you would have asked me, I would have said, you know what, it's probably going to be a real close game. I do think that Tennessee is going to come out on top, but giving up 63 points to South Carolina, I would have never have thought that
Mhm.
ever in a million years.
Nobody, even the most objective person or the biggest Tennessee hater, would have. They might have said it, but there's no way they'd have believed that because that
Mm-mm.
just was crazy. And unfortunately, see, and I'm not so surprised for. I'm not surprised in this sense as a Gator fan. We've had those disappointments where you're on a verge, you could come back in, and then something hits you. I remember back 2010, the Gators were six. They had a chance to do something, but because of the thing and the rescheduling, they didn't play LSU when LSU was really down. They got rescheduled to December that they had to play the game, and Florida struggled the whole dang game.
Yep.
Couldn't stop LSU. It was back and forth. Florida finally got a tie. And then third and long, they finally stopped LSU. Was going to force a punt, but for some reason, the defensive back decided that he wanted to grab off the LSU player's shoes and throw it 30 yards downfield. Yeah, 15-yard penalty. LSU moves, kicks a 50-plus yard field goal, and ends up winning the game.
Yeah.
It's like, jeez, just bitter disappointments. Your teams have always done it at some point, and as you said, I agree. I understand that negativity. We've talked off screen before, though. Like me, my time was the late '70s, early '80s with Florida and Georgia.
Yeah.
Did not matter what we did. We seemed to have the better team. This, that, and the other. We had leads just to magically, and we had that run Lindsay run game
Yep.
back when nobody threw 90-yard passes, but one pass across the middle, one guy slips, runs all out, and then they had to renovate the stadium and broke a metal chair, a steel metal chair. I
Steel
love that
metal
call.
chair.
I know. I love that
I
call.
love that too.
Larry Munson was awesome. But, but then the next year they had one where Florida had a lead like 21-19, and Georgia gets the ball and scores right at the end. And then, of course, the worst was the 44-0 beating one year. So, I understand the negativity going to some of the games like that. So, we'll move on and we'll get through these others fairly quickly.
Yep.
UMass Texas A&M was 20-3. Texas A&M won, broke a 6-game losing streak, but then again they barely beat a 1-9 team. I'll talk more about this one. I'll say this one more for Tuesday night at Florida at Vanderbilt. I'll let you talk more about this one if you'd like to. Florida goes on the road, lays an egg, loses to Vanderbilt, even with 400 yards passing, loses to Vandy 31-24. Do you have any thoughts about that?
You know what? I will say this. I didn't get to watch this game yesterday all the way through, but I did catch some of the highlights. It just seemed like Florida was not really swaggering, but I watched that fumble to where Vanderbilt picked it up in the end zone, and I was sitting there, the end zone, and I looked and I was like, that doesn't look like Florida to me. That just does not look like Florida. I've watched Florida for years and years and years. That did not look like the Florida Gators that I'm used to watching.
For whatever reason, when they go to Vandy, they get lackadaisical. They almost always struggle out there. I don't understand it. It's so frustrating. Watching the body language on the quarterback and the other players, it's just like they're just walking through the motions.
Yeah.
And when they got behind, there was no sense of urgency. So, but I still have my questions on the coaching staff, but we'll see what happens next year. See if it gets any better. So, okay. Well, we'll go ahead and we'll go to UAB LSU. LSU ends up pulling away in this game. It was a relatively close at first, but LSU wins 41-10. Auburn ends up going away from Western Kentucky. The final was, Auburn wins this game 41-17. And then Alabama only scored 34 points against Austin Peay and wins 34-0. I was actually kind of surprised that Alabama did not roll up the score on them.
I'm surprised by that as well.
So, I mean, you would have thought that there would have been a lot more scoring Alabama on them. But, hey, give Austin Peay credit. They didn't give up. I mean, if they had any offense, they could have made it a football game. But they so that's it. That was the scores for this week. So, just a lot of paycheck games, as we say. So, and we'll move over. Here's the winner, the big thing. And we'll do the drum roll, please, after this. Basically, the missus and I agreed on all these winners here. Georgia beating Kentucky, Mississippi State beating East Tennessee, Missouri winning, Texas A&M winning, LSU, Auburn, and Alabama all winning. There were two games that will not be shown here, Florida Vanderbilt and Tennessee South Carolina, because we both took the losing team in those efforts, which then means, yes, the missus really want to pick Vandy. I understand that. That happened to me several times this year too. And I will tell you, I picked Vandy a time or two, and they let me down big time. So you have every right to not taking them. So this week's winner comes down to Ole Miss at Arkansas, which, if you remember what we said the score was, that means the missus won. Arkansas won that game 42-27, and then I'm
big old goose egg.
Yeah, big old goose egg. So that means the missus wins this week with a record of 8-2. I follow behind at 7-3. Overall, I have a 5-game lead still on the guest at 75-27, and the guests have an overall record of 70-32. So that is currently where we stand with things. I'm busy week in SEC. Should have been a boring week, but obviously wasn't, with Ole Miss losing and, of course, Florida losing, and then the Tennessee massacre. I mean, this should have been a very boring week, but it really wasn't. The only thing
it wasn't.
Only thing was it didn't really significantly affect the standings, but geez, who saw all that coming?
I didn't. And that's the one thing that I love about sports is that any given Sunday or any given Saturday or any given insert day of the week here, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And yes, you can be like Mark D with a C. You can put this all over Twitter, all over Facebook, whatever you want to do. Yeah, you weren't
we
undefeated like he was. Go ahead.
I was getting ready to say we're all gonna retweet it.
Go for it. Let's see how many retweets we can get. Let's see how many retweets we can get. So, oh boy. All right, Geeky. Well, let's talk about where things stand in the SEC. How about that?
That'll work.
All right. Overall, we know Georgia and LSU have won their respective divisions, even though LSU has one more game this week. So against Arkansas, it's still, even if LSU, really what is important for LSU is not so much winning this game for the conference records, but to stay in the national playoff hunt, which we'll talk about in just a second. But in the SEC, we see that, Alabama and Tennessee have moved into, second place in the respective divisions. The log jams are in the middle. It's so many 3-4, 4-3, 4-4 teams. It's just amazing. But obviously South Carolina came up on top over Kentucky and Florida to move into third for the division, while Missouri and Vanderbilt closed the bottom in the East. But look, they are still. I mean, all they have to do is upset people this week,
Mm-hmm.
and they could be 500 and bowl eligible. As a Florida fan, that really annoys me because it's like.
So with Florida as it stands now, and forgive me for this because, but is Florida still in the running for a bowl game, or are they completely out now?
They've got 6 wins. They're bowl eligible.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, they're bowl eligible. You got to get the 6. The only time, because they played a game against Eastern Washington, but I think Eastern Washington was high enough level to count towards the 6 wins. Mm-hmm. The other, there are some cases where those games don't count. I think when you go into the FCS division, like what used to be the 1AA.
Yep.
So that, there's still sometimes, but I think 6 wins is usually what gets you as qualified for the bowl games. And, especially if you get a lot of teams that don't get 6 wins, they sometimes may have to waive the rules to bring in anybody, take anybody that's breathing.
Yeah, and because rules change all the time, you never know.
Yeah. So I know, like A&M last year, I believe A&M had their bowl game canceled because there was the outbreak of the thing that resulted at the last minute that they canceled the game. So that was a big thing last year. I'm curious to see if this year, if they'll have the same concerns and if they'll cancel games like they did last year.
Yeah.
As needed. And of course, 2010 was a really different. 2010 was a different year because not 2010, 2020 was a different year because a lot of teams didn't even play 10 games. It was like, let's do anything, and they were taking 5 and 7 teams. Teams with outright losing records.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing, to see. But yeah, it's. As a Florida fan, I'm like I'm tired of mediocrity. We were actually pretty good a couple of years ago. Now we've just fell off the planet for a bit, but hopefully we'll be back. Maybe my pessimism is not warranted, but hey, but you look at the Western side, you got Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas still in the middle of the pack like they always are. Hey, Auburn fans, I know we had one out here in our chat earlier in the season, hopefully comes back, but hey, y'all did win another conference game, and guess what? You finished higher than Texas A&M. Because they beat. It's just so funny how this shows you how the volatility of college football can be. Texas A&M was widely, almost unanimously figured to be second in the West, and look what happened to them this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
just
look on the other side, look at Missouri.
mm-hmm.
It's like uh, and I know that this has been a long time ago, but whenever Missouri and Texas A&M came in, it was like, okay, are y'all going to be able to keep up with the SEC? And it's like this year you see them down there at the bottom and it's like, are you
Yeah.
still part of the SEC?
And honestly, that's the one expansion I did not like. I thought they were a bad selection, a bad fit, geographically, culturally wise, the type of schools they were.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like them bringing them, and then you stick Missouri in the East. Why?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I'll go back on Wednesday night, folks. Listen, go back watch some of my older shows. Look at some of my. I did a state of the SEC Wednesday night. Go back and look at some of the other weeklies where people have talked, because they've brought a lot of experiences and joys of football and stuff. Go back and watch those, even if you don't watch the predictions and stats. And I understand that, but the guests have been incredible this year. Rambling Canuck with his son's video of him playing football, talking about the differences between Canadian and American football. Um, uh, I mean, Culture Casino, we talked business type of football, just a lot of different amazing stuff. Everybody had different takes and different experiences with football. Um, but I say that to go back and look at the older shows, because you brought up a point like with Missouri, and I mentioned this Wednesday night. If you look at them right now, well, as of Wednesday night, they were 4-6, so they won this week. But as of Wednesday, at 4-6, 2-5 in the conference, they could have been 8-2, 6-1, which would have been, now they'd be 9-2.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to Auburn on the road, 17-14. They had a point blank field goal 20 yards away, straight forward, and somehow the kicker missed it. Then in overtime, their running back, they hold Auburn field goal, and the running back's making a break to the goal line, tries to reach the ball over, but loses control, and it's recovered by Auburn. They lose to Georgia 26-22. They had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, and they led until about the 4-minute mark. The loss to Florida on the road 24-17. They held the Gators to 66 yards passing, and they threw a pick six on a drive deep in Gator territory, which provided the winning margin. And then a loss to Kentucky 21-17. Kentucky scored the game-winning touchdown with 5:18 left in the game. So if you look at Missouri, they're really, and I'll tell you what, Tennessee, Wade, if you're there, please, or I'll tell you later if you're not, or watch this later. The comfort you can take as a Vol fan is there's not a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas. Yeah, kind of this game, you got beat unexpectedly, but you know what? You got beat. At least you didn't get beat on a fluky play or a last-second thing. You got beat. You look at a team like Missouri. Missouri would have had, if all this stuff went Missouri's way, they would have beaten Georgia head-to-head. They would have one loss in the conference, which means they would be going to Atlanta. How would you like to be a team like that it was so close, that could have had so much more, but then they're sitting at 5-6?
This is very true. I'm going to agree with you on that, because South Carolina outrightly beat us. We didn't have any flukes that happened. We didn't have, it was just off playing. That's what it was. And, like I've said before, as you guys can see, we're sitting at 9-2 overall. If you go back and look at Tennessee history for, I'm going to say, at least the last 20 years, we haven't had a record like this at all, period, in a long time. If we get beat next week by Vandy, I mean, I'm going to kind of bury my head in the sand and be like, actually, I was going to send you something today. It was Josh Prey, who is a huge Florida Gator fan, and he came up to Knoxville for the Florida-Tennessee game, and now he's a Tennessee fan supporter. He said, and I quote, "We got beat by a hospital team." And I was like, okay, that is the perfect way to put that. So, I mean, if we do get beat by this hospital team next week, I may bury my head in the sand for a little bit, but then we're going to have a 9-2 record, or excuse me, a 9-3 record.
Yeah.
That's better than anything that we've had in the last 20 years. So I'm going to consider this season a thumbs up. Maybe not a double thumbs up, but a thumbs up.
Well, talk about that a little bit more. I think I touched on it in the preseason special or earlier in the year, but I've grown up really hating Tennessee over the year because of that damn song. So that song always just like it just gets me. But I play it all week during the Florida Tennessee just to get myself riled up.
Yep.
But you know what? In all seriousness, and what I've said before is really, my hat's off to the poor Tennessee fans. I mean, what we're going through, even though we're struggling a little bit right now, is nothing compared to what y'all have done, and not really just what y'all have done recently, um, um, but just y'all have had 20 seasons of not necessarily just mediocrity. Y'all have had just flat out just unwatchable football at times.
Yep.
Your coaches, they seem, I mean, they seem like their heads were elsewhere. I mean, you had the 1 year of Lane Kiffin experience that was
Ugh.
like, and then you had others that were way out of their league, not being able to handle a job of that size. And, it's always been a passionate fan base.
Yes, we are extremely passionate about our football, and I would just like to throw out there that the Lane Kiffin year, I would like to compare that to having, boyfriend who was really great at first, and then, he kind of, for lack of a better term, just, completely just goes off the rails. So
Yeah.
that's like your forgotten relationship with Lane Kiffin. But
Yeah.
yeah,
You
just
forget that one.
yeah, but just overall, Tennessee, I mean,
Yeah.
it just, we've had so many heartbreaks over the year, and just to see this amazing season that we've had, and then last night we just got curb stomped, and that's all you can say.
Well, I tell you what, like I said, I feel for the fan base over the years. I guess you're not supposed to feel for your enemies, but still, but when you look at from a true pure college football standpoint,
Hmm.
with the tradition, with the history from Robert Nalen, and then over the years, and even the full Phil Fulmer, because I remember the days when everybody, even though Fulmer won that title, it wasn't long after that they wanted to get rid of him.
Yep, that's exactly it. And one of my favorite things about Tennessee football back in the 90s and the early 2000s was the Philip Fulmer, Steve Spurrier Tennessee versus Florida games. Those were some of my
Yeah,
favorites, mainly because I loved it whenever Spurrier got upset and that visor went flying. That was my favorite. That was my favorite moment of the Tennessee Florida games.
hmm
But those were the games that you love to hate, especially for a Tennessee fan, whenever Florida just kept stomping us and stomping on
and
us.
Florida.
But
Florida had his number there, but then again, you never knew. I remember 2001. We all know what happened in 2001. Well, that game got canceled and pushed to December, like that LSU game, and Florida was top of the world, and then Tennessee rolls into Gainesville, and you got Casey Clausen, I think it was, leading the band in Rocky Top afterwards.
yep, you sure did. Oh my gosh. I haven't thought about Casey Clausen in years. And whenever we talked about Eric Ainge, like to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't even thought about Eric Ainge in so long. But like these are, names that you'll never forget as a Tennessee fan.
Yeah. Well, see, I told you, and I've said here, I listen to Sports Animal up there. I don't know how much often you get to listen to the daytime radio. Eric Ainge has a morning radio show uh, there
I
up
did
there.
I did know that. Thank you
Yeah,
for kicking my memory into
yeah.
go time.
Well, I love listening to him because I take my guys off of him. Because if he thinks Florida's good, I listen. But the darndest thing was, it was so funny when he was. I've always said Phil Fulmer was a great equalizer. He helped keep Florida in some of those games, kind of ribbing with some of the coaching decisions. But when last year, Ainge was talking about basketball, and he talked about the Gator basketball coach was Mike White at the time, who's now gone to Georgia.
Mhm.
The guy Ainge was like, "Hey, I love him. Let him be the coach at Gainesville all the time," because he loved Mike White as a Gator coach. Because he's right, the guy found a way to shut his offense down and lose games at the end. It just was. So when when your arch enemy is talking good about your coach, you don't have a good coach.
Exactly.
But
But
yeah,
I will
yeah,
say this as well. As a Tennessee fan, the last year with meeting you and Mrs. Dadman and also finding other Florida content creators on YouTube, I have kind of relinquished my hatred of Florida a little bit. I mean, whenever we play you guys, I'm still gonna, be like, come on, Tennessee, beat Florida. But I have relinquished the hatred a little bit.
yeah, I know. I have to. I have to because it makes it a joy about the game overall, coming together, having fun, enjoying it. Because 2020 should have really showed us all about how close we could come to losing things.
Absolutely.
Because I'm grateful for whatever we had that year, but still, it's like it was a hard year if you were a football fan and having to deal with so many things and games got canceled. And I
Hmm.
just need to make sure I showed this one again. So,
Woohoo, Mrs. Dadman.
yay! But yeah, I mean, and who knows? We're still around next year. We'll have to uh, somehow StreamYard and watch the Florida Tennessee game. Actually, I got an idea about something to tell you off air though that I saw today.
Okay.
So anyway, well, we'll move on to the national picture, and then we'll go to wrap up soon. The AP poll, we don't. At last check, we did not have the the last check. We did not have the current CFP, the actual playoff. Um, yeah, I don't see the actual college playoff poll is out yet, but we do have the AP, we're only showing the AP tonight. Georgia, of course, almost unanimous number one. Ohio State second. Michigan at Ohio State had a close call on the road at Maryland. Michigan, why and TCU? Why do these little teams? Why can they not just beat these guys? Illinois gave up a field goal at the end. Baylor, though, at home gave up a field goal at the end for TCU to win. And I remember listening to the sports animal yesterday, and it was Ainge that said if TCU got the ball back, they were going to win because he had criticized Baylor, coaching not to win.
Hmm.
A lot of times we run 3 plays and make them use their timeouts. But when you leave the opponents with too much time, then they can come back and win like they did yesterday.
Yep.
But
And I'm
we,
sitting there. I'm sitting there watching both of those games actually, and I caught TCU at the very end whenever they kicked that field goal, and I was sitting there going, "Oh, come on, Michigan and TCU, couldn't you have just lost, just to help us out?" Of course, it didn't. In the end, it didn't really matter because Tennessee
Mhm.
lost. But I was like, "Y'all are 3 and 4 ranked, and you
Yeah.
can't blow these teams out. Come on now." But I mean, I hate to, throw this out there, but there possibly maybe a little bit of sandbagging going on. I don't know.
Or sometimes looking ahead to the next team. Well, like TCU though, Baylor's not a bad team, and they had to go on the road for it.
Yeah.
Illinois has gotten better, but I'm sorry, Michigan, you're at home. I know Michigan lost their star running back though early in the second half, but still they were not doing much offensively before then. But yeah, and sometimes that happens. Like they have that game next week at Ohio State. Sometimes you do look ahead. Like
You
maybe
do.
Tennessee was looking ahead to Well, why would you look ahead to Vanderbilt? I don't.
Oh
I'm
well.
trying to give them credit for what they did to South Carolina, but you'd look at that. You never know with it. But the drama will play out over the next 2 weeks. With the conference championships next week. The rivalry games this coming up week, and then the week after we'll have the conference championship games,
Hmm.
um, which could be a lot that will decide a lot. Um, and to your point with Tennessee, like we talked about, I think sometimes the problem is either in the fan base or in the media supporters. Sometimes they get too busy looking down the road instead of game by game.
Hmm.
Because a lot of the talk I was hearing is that yeah, we're going to be in it, we should be in it, instead of let's just beat Vanderbilt. It's
Exactly. And that's the problem I think that Tennessee had this year is we started out guns blazing. And of course, media has a lot to do with it, but I feel like that our boys just were not ready for that. And do I think that next year that it's going to affect us? I do believe it will, as far as, okay, we had a great season. We had a little bit of stumbling blocks, but I think that the coaching staff over at Tennessee are going to take those mistakes and they are going to instill, hey,
Mhm.
this may have happened last year, but this is this year. And I think next year, I do think that Tennessee is going to come back. No, I don't think that we're going to win the national championship. That is not what I'm saying on
Mhm.
record.
Yeah.
But I do think that they are going to take this season as a serious lesson in learning to play it game by game instead of, looking to the future. That's what I was trying to
Yeah.
get at.
Yeah, no, obviously, and it's part natural with football. You get excited, you keep talking. I mean, it's just natural. But I mean,
Yeah.
well, I'll talk more about it Tuesday. But I give you a chance to get it out of your soul tonight because that was just like, I mean, I tell you, I've seen Florida the one year. I mean, like I said, the 1995 national championship game. Florida was awesome, rocking offense. We walk into the Fiesta Bowl. They started with a 20-minute national anthem, Hallelujah chorus thing. And then Nebraska never quit running the damn football. It
Yep.
ended up 62-24. And the joke down here was because Alabama and Nebraska didn't have to throw the friggin' football. It was just running option like they used to do, the good old school Nebraska offenses. It was the joke down here was this just in. Tommy Frazier scores again. Like 3 months later down the road, it's just like, okay, we know, okay, we know you don't have to keep reminding us, but
Yep.
hey. But let's look at the rest of the picture. We got TCU, the top four of that. So Ohio State, Michigan should drop out of that, which puts USC very good position if they can win the Pac, win next week, and then win the Pac-12 championship game. Uh, the question comes to, will LSU beat Georgia? If LSU beats Georgia, does the SEC get two teams in? Which I would think that they would, with Georgia with only one loss as defending national title.
Hmm.
LSU's only shot is really to win in.
Yep.
But what I think with the poll developments and as the college football playoff poll follows, you notice how USC and Clemson both jumped Alabama.
Yep.
That's probably a pretty big sign right there. And that could have ramifications in the computerized poll with the college football poll because, I mean, there's this talk about, well, a two-loss SEC team is better than some of these others, but maybe this is the year that people look towards winning your conference title as an important issue.
And that's what they should be looking at.
And we're not talking about like American Athletic Conference or the Mid American. We're talking about the Pac-12 and the ACC and the Big 12 that are considered the Power Five conferences.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, and then Tennessee will be there on uh, um, the ninth position. Yeah, it's kind of like what I look at it from an SEC guy is how does this fall out into the SEC bowl matches? Because let's presume Georgia wins, so LSU goes. Would LSU or Alabama go to the Sugar Bowl? Then where does Alabama go? Where does Tennessee go?
Yeah.
So you could have a chance where Tennessee probably comes to Florida this year. So,
Ooh.
but you never know. I mean, they might get the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, or they might get. But see, I think the Peach Bowl's tied into the bowl championship this year. I
Yeah.
don't. That's how all that works. But hey, whether you get Orlando, Tampa, or even Jacksonville, or even South Florida, it's it'll at least it's usually warm down here in December or January. That's about the best we can say for it. So, and Ole Miss dropped 6 to 20th. So there's 5 teams in the top 20, but really your national championship contenders are probably in this top 7.
Mm-hmm.
With that, short of any other barring upsets, like if Kansas State beats TCU or USC loses in the Pac-12 championship game, nobody's likely to beat Clemson again. But what if they do? So it'd make things interesting with all these 2-loss teams down the road. But any other names in the top 25 you like? It's interesting how Notre Dame's all the way up to 13th for whatever reason, just
I
for beating
know.
Clemson. All they did was beat Clemson, and now they're up to 13th. I don't get that. Um, Utah drops 4 for losing to Oregon. Kansas State, Florida State's up high. So hey, this is a weird year. Florida State's ranked pretty well, and the Gators will go into Tallahassee unranked and having lost to Vanderbilt. Right. But yeah, we got UCLA, UNC, Tulane. The Missus loves Tulane, so they're down there. And just some Coastal Carolinas in the poll.
And there's your Beavers at
Beaver.
22.
Yes, number 22. At least I got one decent team this year, which I'd love to see them knock off Oregon in the Civil War.
Hey.
Yeah, I know.
Don't you start going after my Ducks now.
Okay. Hey, we're going to have to, I don't know. We're going to have to fight over that one a little bit. Let me see real quick. I'm going to try. It's in Reser Stadium. It's in Corvallis this year. So, I don't know. That might be interesting. We might be talking over that one. Hey, here we are in an SEC football show, and we're bringing up the Pac-12. How about that?
Who would have guessed? Although I will say, part of the reason why I like the Ducks, and I've mentioned this to you before, is because they actually came to play Tennessee, and they beat us, and the Oregon fans were so sweet that I became, I watch Oregon, and I root for them. But of course, my hockey team is the Anaheim Ducks. So I was like, you know what? I think I could like a football team named the Ducks too. So for everybody who's listening, that's a couple of the reasons why I support the Oregon Ducks.
And as I told you, and I've said to people before, the Beavers came about the early 80s when I'm just going through newspaper as a kid with no TV, everything else. When we had printed papers, just staring the print off the box scores and stuff. And I decided to take the stink teams from, like, the NBA was the Golden State Warriors, the hockey with the New Jersey Devils, which I might have to get in hockey since they're doing good this year. But then the Beavers out of nowhere, just like Beavers, and they became good over the years. So, I just like to follow the bad teams until they get good. So the Miss actually has, go Coastal Carolina. Yeah, they've actually been pretty good in recent years. It'll be interesting to see how far they move up. Here's a question. And Geeky, I know you probably have had this question a lot of times yourself over the years.
Mm-hmm.
What is Texas with 7-4 getting into the top 25? Well, one goes towards name recognition. Texas is Texas. They're a Big 12 team. They have a big history of football. They've had some good wins this year, but they're probably given the most regard for the game that they lost, which was very early in the year when they hosted Alabama and held on for a 20-19 win. And they had their starting quarterback knocked out. Even the backup was limping along in that game. So sometimes you get a game like that and they find ways to put you in and, excuses. So that's kind of what happens with Texas. It's a lot of based on reputation and stuff. You're asking the question that I'm asking about Notre Dame. Why does a Notre Dame team that has had some very ugly losses, even at home, like losing to Marshall at home, how can they ever get up to 13th, even though they did beat Clemson pretty good? Why do you justify ranking Notre Dame so high? But, that's the age-old question whenever you involve human polls.
Yep.
Now, human biases in this. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, have you read rumors that Oklahoma and Texas are also going to be part of the SEC? I think it's like maybe 2024 or 2025.
They're not rumors. It is official.
Oh, great. Okay.
What I don't like about it is what I just heard recently is the talk about getting rid of the divisions. Tennessee and Florida are going to be teams that will struggle to ever make a championship game again now going forward. I think with the NIL and all the things have changed, when you got Georgia and Alabama up there, it's going to be harder for some of these teams. But then again, the option is a geographical realignment, which means would you, as a Tennessee fan, would you like Alabama and Auburn shifting into the East? with the two other teams coming in the West?
No, because then that means that Tennessee is going to have to try to work harder to be
I
the top of the East. So no,
Yeah,
I would hate that.
and then you got to jump over Florida, Georgia,
Yep.
Alabama, and a lot of years Auburn when they get back on. It's just and that's another date we can have a discussion on about super conferences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because is this good for college football? I don't necessarily think so, because you're getting so many teams who can keep natural rivalries. Now, for the Texas and Oklahoma schools, they can renew the rivalries with A&M,
Mhm.
Arkansas, that have been put off all these years. And that way it's good, but how can you have that many natural rivalries with that many teams in one conference? And that will make 16 teams in the conference. I'm just not. It's good for it's good obviously for the conference bringing in names like that, but I don't know that it's good for football. But they don't ask us, they make these decisions, and then we just have to adjust.
Yeah, we're just here in the peanut gallery.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things with, if they do this and then the other leagues follow suit, they've got to expand the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can do it, because, like a team like Tennessee that truly did deserve to get in a 16 team. And I think it's beyond 12. I think if they're going to do it, go to 16. Even if you take off one regular season game from everybody, you need to, if you're going to do it right. I mean, have it 16 like the 1AA, the football championship does it. I mean, they're
Exactly.
the same thing. Why do you do it different at this big level? Like right now, when there's only 4 in the little league, has 16, 16 in it. It just, you get into saving the bowl system and all this other stuff. But, quite frankly, that's another issue that we can talk about another time. A whole topic itself. Is it time for the bowl system to go away? Because you end up with these games that people don't usually want to watch, and then $50. I was telling you, $50 tickets. And we had Mississippi State come here one year. I'm not watching Mississippi State or Kentucky.
No.
Now, I would be willing to pay to watch this Tennessee team, but still 50 is asking a lot. But hey,
I agree. I agree with that. Now, if I were to go to the Ohio State Michigan game, I think I would up it to about 100, because I know that Ohio State and Michigan are one of the biggest rivals in college football, and to see that live, I think that would be a really neat game to go to.
and I
But
agree with you, because that's kind of the history. That's the history, the weight of the game. It has. I hate using the word gravitas. I can't believe I've actually used the word freaking gravitas. But, damn, I remember when that word came out and I hated it. It's stupid. But it had that weight. It had that pull. The names meant something to be, okay, fine. They can demand that price. I'll pay it.
yeah,
Versus like the Kentuckys or the Mississippi States. It's just like, look, I'll pay $25. I'll go buy snacks. Okay. Just cut the ticket price.
exactly.
You know how that goes. So anyway, well, we've got 6 people still watching with us, and thank you for coming by. If you're lurking, thank you. Make sure you follow on Twitch, and if you're on the YouTube side, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to, we're just trying to grow a little bit, but we're having fun with football these days, and we do some other different things along the way and some Fortnite streams. So with that, Geeky, I think that's about everything I've got tonight. Before we close, and would you like to say anything else?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who is watching. I want to say a huge thank you to Dadman for letting me come on and, talk about sports and, override his stream with all my Tennessee talk. It's just been a great experience, and I'm so glad that I found this community to talk football with.
Absolutely. Looking forward to doing more with you too. So with that, I'm going to put you in the back room and just wait a minute. I'll be back there in just a second.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
All right. Well, listen, what a great recap tonight. A little bit different than we did it earlier in the seasons, the last 2 weeks with a guest coming in. Hopefully you like it. Would like to have more, and we can chat and ask questions. Thank you for the questions that we did get. Appreciate it. And, we're at the end of the season. We'll do a recap next Sunday also. It'll be Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully people can watch after being filled up with turkey and stuff. But will have fun. It's been a great year. It's amazing how fast it's been, and it's been a wonderful year with all of our guests. And we'll do a more full recap later, looking back at all the guests and everything that transpired. But with that, we still have week 13. We also have a championship week, and there's bowl season and the national championship playoffs coming. We're going to have plans to do streams related and centered around those. Just be alert for them, and I'll tell you where you can find them in just a moment. But first, with next week being Thanksgiving, our show's normally on Thursday night and sometimes Friday. Well, next week, since Thanksgiving is on Thursday, we're moving the show to Tuesday night, this Tuesday night, the 22nd, at 8 p.m. Eastern. And this is a big week of rivalry games. You have Alabama, Auburn in the Iron Bowl, Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, Georgia Tech. But you also have the great one that I love is the Florida State game here in Florida. It'll be played in Tallahassee. So with that being said, our special guest on Tuesday night is none other than the Queen of Florida herself, Lorena Creole, who has the Welcome to Florida show on in about less than 2 hours at 8 p.m. tonight. I suggest you go over there, watch her there. I'll be over there tonight. She's asked me on. We're discussing the history of Fast Pass at Disney. But definitely join us Tuesday night. We're going to look for a very fun and lively discussion of college football with Lorena. See what happens. Talk football. Talk about Florida. See what goes this Thanksgiving week. So hope to see you again Tuesday night. If we don't do some other Fortnite streams and stuff in the meantime, just check us. But to check us out for what we're doing is the best place is to always go to Twitter. Look at Dadman Walking 55. Check us out there. We'll post when we go live, where we're going live, even if it's on other channels. And hope you can join us even on other channels that have supported us, that opened the door for us to go and stream with them. But again, as I said, on Twitch TV, you can find us at Dadman Walking 55. Please follow us over there if you haven't already. YouTube, it's at Dadman Walking 55. Come join us and leave a like. Follow us over there. And I've already said if we can get to 100 subscribers on the YouTube, I'll do a 24-hour stream. Why? I don't know. But hey, sounds like fun when you're 50-something years old. But hey, like to see you there. And don't forget, join us over at Lorena's in about 2 hours. And definitely join us on Tuesday night here for a very special show and our last regular season show of the year. With that, I want to say thank you to my guest, Geeky. She's Geeky for being here. We're talking lots of football, for Mrs. Dadman Walking, for producing all the slides and being in the chat. Wade, for you being in the chat. Thank you for being here as you were. And for all you that are lurking or watching on replay, thank you for your support. Follow, leave a like, and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye.